Just a few points I'd like to highlight. To begin with, because I know there was news this morning about the earthquake in Venezuela, I had the opportunity to speak earlier today with Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president. We are obviously waiting for we are already mobilizing the search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and from Los Angeles. There will be other teams that we will add. That is their most immediate need right now, search and rescue efforts. They have many collapsed buildings, so they will need a lot of help to dig through that rubble. The airport is badly damaged, so we'll need the Department of Defense to send resources. And we're also helping with aerial images, especially in coastal areas where they don't have full visibility of what the damage or impact was. These are the acute short-term needs for the next 48 to 72 hours. Because in search and rescue operations, you try to reach people while it's still possible to save their lives. They're buried under the rubble. Other countries are responding too. The Qataris have already offered help, as we discussed with them earlier today. Yes, El Salvador has also volunteered, and several countries in the region, including Chile and others, have contacted us to communicate and make this happen. As we move forward with this response, with the short-term response and recovery phase, the second phase, of course, will be to identify their most urgent and long-term needs. What will they need? Will we need long-term help? We will have a better assessment in the next 48 hours when we are on site and as the Venezuelan authorities clarify the damage to housing. Where can we shelter those who have nowhere to go? What can we do to help restore their communications, internet, and telecommunications? We will also have to manage what we expect to be an increase in private donations. I can imagine that there will be many people from the United States and entities in the United States. We have already reached out to some of the main charities. But I know that at the local level, especially in places like South Florida where I live, there will be many people who will want to help to provide assistance, and we just need to find a way to step in and offer logistical support for that. In addition, we have already activated our disaster response teams at the State Department and our humanitarian efforts. It's something we did very well in Jamaica after that storm, and it's something we're really prepared for now. So I've already spoken with Secretary Hexet. The Department of Defense will have to play a major logistical role here because they have the ability to reach challenging places. At this moment, the Caracas airport is damaged, one of the runways is cracked, but the Department of Defense has the ability to land. In situations like this, then, we're going to need that. So we have a full government response. It's going to be big, it's going to be fast, and it's going to be effective. And, of course, obviously, we are in contact through our embassy there. I believe we have almost all of our team accounted for there. And, of course, the Americans are safe. The last point is that we know there are American citizens inside Venezuela right now, so we've also gone through the normal processes we've established so they can communicate with us if they need assistance or help. On this visit, we had a very productive meeting. I know you hear that all the time, but it was really a great meeting with the Gulf countries. They shared concrete concerns and important ideas. The biggest concern is that they really want to be informed at every step during the negotiations, both at the technical and political levels. We want their involvement. Qatar is helpful as a mediator, but the opinions of all these countries must be reflected. We will not make decisions or commitments that harm the prosperity, stability, or security of our Gulf partners. Therefore, at every step, we will maintain constant communication so that they don't learn about things through the media. With no disrespect to you, they should hear directly from us and be as involved as possible as we move forward. And that's something we discussed today. They have some other specific issues. One thing that became clear, it's very clear that there is no support among the Gulf countries for any kind of toll, fee, or any charge for the use of international waters. The President made it clear that this is not going to happen. This will not be part of it. This cannot be part of it. He made that clear again yesterday in the Oval Office at a press conference, and I reiterated that point, which was a message well received by our partners here when they heard it too. So, all right, let's go. And you said go ahead. In your comments this morning, you mentioned that
in agreement with Iran, this will come at a cost for the Volta a little. Yes, of course.
Do you want to see my face? Yes. Sorry, you can continue.
In your comments this morning, you said that there is no agreement with Iran. This will come with a bet for the interests of the Gulf states. Does that mean that in the negotiations with Iran, you will address the proxies and the threats to the Strait of Hormuz, which, even without being closed, affect maritime navigation?
Traffic and also proxies?
Yes. According to the Memorandum of Understanding, it mentions peace in the region and non-interference in the sovereignty or interests of independent countries. Well, that's what the proxies are. They are interfering in the sovereignty of a country. When you give money, for example, to Hezbollah to act as a rival to the sovereign government of Lebanon, you are interfering in their politics. When you are sponsoring militias in Iraq, you are interfering in Iraq. When you are sponsoring, Hamas or the Houthis or whoever it is, you are interfering with the sovereignty of those countries. So that's included. The memorandum calls for a conversation about these issues because it's fundamental. This topic will certainly be discussed because, after all, there will be no peace and stability in this region as long as there are non-state actors operating within the borders of sovereign countries and being funded by Iran.
Thank you. What is your comment on the dispute between Iran and Oman regarding security for passage in that important Strait of Hormuz region?
Yes. So we've reached a point now where you hear, for example, the Iranians saying one thing, but then something else actually happens. What I would say to everyone is, it's clear to us, and it should be clear to you, that the Iranian system will continue to produce maximalist rhetoric. They will put people on TV and in the official media making statements, but we don't care that much about their press conferences. What matters to us is whether the ships are actually moving. If the ships are moving as they should, then that's exactly what we will assess and respond to. If, on the other hand, that rhetoric is accompanied by real threats and the ships are not moving, that violates the agreement, and we will have a problem with that. So, we observe the continuous flow of ships. In this case, this route serves the evacuation effort led by the International Maritime Organization, and that should continue. As long as this continues, they can hold as many press conferences as they want. If that stops, then we'll have a problem.
Thank you. Oman made a commitment that there would be no charges or tolls, reaffirming that they have no interest in this system even after the 60-day negotiations.
I don't know if it has already been issued, but we have a joint statement from our meeting that makes this absolutely clear. That's why I'd like to reiterate the point I mentioned earlier in case you weren't in the open session. Charges and tolls are the same. You pay to pass. It doesn't matter if you call it a fee, a toll, or a donation, it's a toll. That's how we define it. This is an international waterway. There isn't a nation on earth that supports having to pay to cross the straits, and think about it that way. That's not even feasible. Let's suppose we went completely crazy and decided to agree with a toll or fee mechanism. How would that work? That's not feasible. Because what would be the consequence of not paying? If a ship says it's not going to pay, it's not a toll, you can't charge it. Collect it by mail. They're targeted. If you shoot and sink a ship, no other will move. This kind of system is reckless and unfeasible. It's better to forget this idea now. We've already made ourselves clear. You can come. Call it a fee or a toll. Call it whatever you want. If they charge to use the straits, we won't support it. We won't tolerate or allow it. There was unanimity in the room on this point.
Sir.
Secretary.
Two things. About Venezuela, is there already a dollar amount for the assistance, or is it still too early?
Well, it's still too early. We know they need it. With my experience living in South Florida and going through hurricanes that affected the Caribbean, I learned that you have to wait to see what the needs are. The most immediate priority right now is search and rescue, because it's crucial to get people out of the rubble within 48 hours so they have a chance to survive. And that's why this is the first thing we're going to respond to. Then we'll assess what else they need. I imagine, from what I know about this kind of situation, there are things they'll need right away. How do you shelter all these people in the short term? So we'll have a better understanding of that. It hasn't even been 12 hours yet. No numbers yet, but the president is fully committed to supporting Venezuela.
And secondly, are you aware if any of the frozen money held by Qatar has been transferred?
No.
Already to Iran?
I'm not aware of that, and I don't think anyone in our system said it. I don't know if you're referring to any news, but so far we don't know of any money, nor have we authorized any transfer. Okay, is the money still there? As far as I know. That's our understanding. Right. With no agreement on this, it's better to keep it that way.
Summary of today's meeting with the king.
It was very positive. We came, first of all, for a long-term relationship. We have been here for decades, so it's not something new between our countries. So, obviously, as always, just to express gratitude for everything, the support they have given us during this conflict. And the second thing is just to reiterate the points I mentioned to you. That is, we are obviously the President of the United States. If we can make a deal with Iran that is good for everyone, we want to do it. We will do it. We can give it every chance to work out. But also to make it clear that we are not going to do anything or agree to anything that they are not aware of, that they are not, that our partners in the region are not aware of, that our partners in the region are not aligned, and that in some way could compromise their security and their stability. So, to reassure them about these points, the same points we raised at the GCC meeting. Sir.
Mr. Secretary, at the meeting with the GCC allies, did any of them commit to contributing to this $300 billion reconstruction?
No, that was not discussed. I mean, this issue of reconstruction is still very far off, and that's something that, will be addressed at the appropriate time in that process. But that wasn't discussed by anyone.
You say you're drawing your red lines, both regarding Hormuz and the nuclear program. Yes, Iran rejects those terms. What will Washington do next?
Well, look, the president has several options at his disposal. If Iran goes back on its word, or if Iran decides it doesn't want to make a deal, let's hope that's not the case. We don't want that to be the case. Let's give every chance for diplomacy to work. We have a good team working on this. So if it doesn't work out right, the president knows what his options are. But I'm not going to discuss what those options are with you. But the president has many options at his disposal.
Armand.
He used very direct terms. To describe the Iranians, the leadership of Iran, you called them theocratic lunatics. Do you still see that in today's leadership?
Well, look, it's not that I believe that, it's a fact. I mean, the Iranian system is led by clerics, radical clerics. It has always been led by them, and it continues to be led by them. That said, we also need to deal with the geopolitics of the situation. And then there's a question of whether they've changed their mindset or if they've changed their approach to their relationships. Yeah, let's give it a chance to work for the neighboring countries. But maybe it has changed. I'm not saying it has. I'm saying the president wants to explore if that's the case, and if it has changed, we'll find out. But we won't find out by what they say, we'll find out by what they do. We'll judge them by their actions, and we'll test that hypothesis and see. Look, nobody said this would be easy. We know that people at the highest levels of this government still follow the same theology and mindset as in the past. But there are political sectors that seem more flexible and willing to engage in dialogue, and it's with them that we're negotiating. Let's see how all of this will unfold in the end.
Last month, President Trump threatened to bomb Oman if they imposed tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. Today, you said that no nation should impose tolls on natural straits. How is the bilateral relationship with Oman today? Are you convinced that they are not playing games?
Playing games over this same issue?
Our relationship with Oman is going well. I mean, in the end, there will be no fees or tolls, there won't be any, and they signed. They were there at the meeting today and said they're not in favor of a toll system. So that's good, that's great.
I really need to ask because a few weeks ago there was the threat of bombing Oman, so it didn't seem like everything was fine.
I can only speak for today. And today they said in the meeting and signed that there will be no fees or tolls. And that's why I think it's good news that they signed.
Mr. Secretary, regarding Venezuela, there was a stabilization process underway. Yes, obviously it played a huge role in that. Are you concerned that this earthquake could harm that process?
I'm not worried about that. We're afraid there are people buried and we want to rescue them. Some have relatives in Zua. But regardless of that, we always respond to humanitarian crises, especially in our hemisphere. We're focusing on that now. Earthquakes are beyond stabilization and can't be planned for, but we're responding to this in a positive way. We're glad to see that other countries in the region are also mobilizing. I mean, it's El Salvador, and President Bukele didn't have a good relationship with Venezuela, but he quickly sent a search and rescue team to offer assistance. Now let's focus on the human side. There are people who were harmed and injured. Some died, others suffered serious injuries, and some are still trapped under the rubble. Let's focus on that. About how this fits into the broader stabilization process, I don't think we're looking at it from that angle. Obviously, it's a setback. But we'll get through it, and I believe Venezuela will come out stronger from this, despite the tragedy it's facing right now.
Mr. Secretary, the memorandum did not specify the years for Iran not to develop nuclear weapons. Does the final agreement need a number? I appreciate it, no.
That's why no LACTA. Why wouldn't the MOU have that? Because the MOU is not the final agreement. The MOU just creates the framework and parameters for a negotiation. And there's no doubt that as part of that negotiation, very specific terms like years and limits will be discussed, and that includes the mechanisms by which it will be verified and enforced. But is there a number?
This morning there are negotiations that will take place between the GCC and Iran and Iraq regarding Hormuz. Do you support this kind of...
What is that?
We just heard this morning that there will be a negotiation between the GCC, Iran, and Iraq regarding Hormuz. Do you support it?
I don't know about that, and I haven't seen that report. That wasn't discussed with me today, so I can't comment. Secretary, speak.
The GCC is
working on any direct agreement with Iran to ease tensions? Well, I can't speak to any bilateral communications between those countries. I imagine they've always had communication, and Qatar has been a key mediator in that regard. Regarding our memorandum of understanding, in which we will be involved, what we discussed today is that there will be a mechanism, because now it has been used for everything. But there will be a system established where, at each stage of the process, as developments occur, both in the technical and political discussions around the MOU, they will be included. We will make sure that they are updated on everything that is being discussed, on everything that is being considered, and we will be able to align their views and interests with ours in this regard.
So many of the states have suffered missile attacks.
Including Bahrain?
During the recent one, yes. But there was no mention. It said in the Memorandum of Understanding, the recent one, yes, but there was no mention of this in the Memorandum of Understanding between... What would you say about that? What would you say about that?
Well, look, I think there's a misunderstanding. The MOU doesn't have to be exhaustive. Basically, it sets the groundwork for the negotiation, just like the MOU did. There were specific points about the immediate reopening of the straits, but in the end, it sets the rules for the negotiation process. Within this process, I imagine that many things will be discussed. As for the GCC, they mentioned something today that is of great interest to them. They want some kind of funding for reconstruction. They suffered damages, and they want to be compensated for those damages. So, I imagine that as part of the MOU process and as part of their involvement with us in this process, issues like this will come up, right?
Let's go. Your Italian counterpart canceled an appointment before you came here. Given the tensions between Trump and Prime Minister Meloni, did you address that issue? Did you speak with your counterpart?
I spoke with him last Friday. It was either Friday or Saturday when they decided not to come. Several agreements on critical minerals and other issues are already aligned and will be signed soon. I have, a good relationship with him. He called me and said he wouldn't come to Miami. I was already coming here, so it worked out. It's a shame the event was interrupted. I thought they should have come anyway, but we already had agreements to sign. We will still sign them soon. We just need to find a place to do it.
Can the latter turn the page and rebuild trust between allies?
Yes, I've been thinking about relations with Italy. There are no obstacles at the military level or otherwise. Obviously, the president, he is upset. He feels that it's not just Italy, but other countries as well. When we were facing a threat, especially against Europe, many European countries did not take a stand or act enough, unfortunately including Italy. But we'll have to deal with that. But his views on this have been very clear. That shouldn't surprise anyone. He has repeated this, said it again yesterday. He is. And those points will be discussed at the NATO summit in a few weeks.
Last week, Vice President Vance said in the briefing room that sometimes President Trump gets frustrated because every time in the briefing room has a meeting with the president.
What are you doing here in the meeting room?
Salah said that President Trump sometimes got frustrated whenever Israel and Lebanon were getting close to an agreement. Israel would launch some kind of bomb that killed civilians in Beirut, and that didn't seem productive. Many Republicans. I found these comments in Congress
inappropriate. What did you think of them? So one of the things that happened was that we actually managed to do it. Last Friday, we reactivated the monitoring mechanism that had been inactive. Now, my head is confused and Lebanese. Unfortunately, last Friday, we reactivated the monitoring mechanism. Incident, we no longer accept the word of third parties. We can see, qualify, and quantify what really happened. Yesterday, for example, 2 armed men from Hezbollah in a vehicle approached an Israeli post, and the Israelis reacted to that situation. If this had happened a week ago, the news would have just been that 2 Lebanese were killed by Israelis. Now we know what happened. We clearly saw from the images that 2 armed men outside the Lebanese army posed a threat to the checkpoint. This changes everything compared to what we were getting before. Besides, today is the 3rd day. You know, we're a few hours ahead here. Today will be the 3rd day of talks between the Lebanese authorities and the Israeli authorities. We had a very good day yesterday. I believe we are very close to reaching a commitment of interest or an intention between the 2 countries, which I think starts to outline a promising future. It will be a process. It will take some time. It will require a lot of work. But I say that for the first time in 30 years, the sovereign government of Lebanon is speaking directly with the government of Israel. It is with them that we will negotiate and work, not with Hezbollah. Hezbollah is not the government of Lebanon. Lebanon has a government. It has democratically elected leaders. They have the sovereign right to speak and defend the interests of the Lebanese people. What we want for Lebanon is a peaceful future. That is the wish of everyone here. Honestly, we will have a commitment to positive interests, whether today or in the coming days. We have worked hard for this. We hope that today will be a day to move forward on some of the things we managed to make progress on yesterday. Did you agree with the Vice President's sentiment? No. I already told you the process we are going through now, and that's it. We will find out what is really happening, and we will be able to make an honest assessment about what is happening and what is not happening. Unfortunately, in the past few weeks, there has only been the fog of not knowing exactly who hit what, where, and why. I think that has now been addressed and resolved. So I believe this will give us a lot of clarity about this process. Let's just make this issue very clear. How far apart are you and the Vice President? About which issue? Especially regarding Iran. This administration... No, let me tell you something. Everyone here is aligned with the President of the United States, each one of us. The President of the United States is the one who defines our country's foreign policy, and our role obviously is to advise, to give suggestions, to give opinions. But the one who was elected by the people of our country to conduct our foreign policy is the President. The President makes these decisions, and all of us on his team, each of us, work in total harmony, very close to each other, to carry out the President's foreign policy. Everything we do is because the President made the decision that it will be done. And one of the things I'm most proud of, I can't speak for every sector of our government because I'm not involved in other areas, but one of the things I'm most proud of is that when it comes to foreign policy and national security, we have no drama, we don't play games. We have a group of people who work very well together and closely to carry out the President's directives, and that's why I believe we've had good results and achievements, and we will continue to have good results and achievements. Everyone has an important role to play, and everyone is playing that role and doing it in a collaborative way, right? And I think that serves the President well, and I think that serves the country well. Of course, one of them is you.
Regarding the discussions with Iran as the main diplomat, wouldn't you like a more direct role in these talks led by the Vice President?
Look, I think that, like any other, that's a silly analysis. The Vice President is second in command of the government. That proves we take this initiative seriously. Our team is working on this, and I'm here because they traveled. We all have a role, and after 3 days in this key country, I think it's a silly question. The Vice President of the United States is the government's second most powerful person after the President. The fact that he is directly involved in this shows the importance our administration has given to this issue. So I think it's very positive that he is involved in this, Mr. Secretary.
You know that all the threats coming from Iran are related to Hormuz, to its effect on maritime traffic. How can we put an end to this? Even if they try to close it, it still affects navigation there.
Well, it affects it because they've been blowing up ships and laying mines. This needs to be dealt with directly. We want a more hands-on approach. Many ships are sailing now, but we need to get back to what the strait was before this conflict, because it's an international waterway, and that's how it's going to remain, one way or another.
Secretary, are you concerned that easing sanctions on Iran will fund its military and allied groups? What influence does ZISIWA have to prevent this?
If Iran funds groups, missiles, and everything else with these funds, the deal won't work, right? We know that, but we hope it won't happen. At the moment, there's only a 60-day license to allow negotiations to move forward and see where they lead. I repeat, if Iran truly wants a deal, the United States is open to it. If they don't, then the president will know and will have options available to him.
Just one question about NATO. Yesterday we learned that a senior official said in Washington that in fact allies like Italy helped the armies and the IWA and opened their bases to the Americans. Jets, huh? Iran responded today and called NATO an accomplice. They are claiming that they are responsible for the outbreak of this war between the United States of America and Iran, huh? Iran? Okay, so what's your reaction to the fact that
I've always made it clear that Iran represents an even greater threat to Europe than to the United States. Iran already has missiles that can reach parts of Europe, which is part of the president's frustration. Everyone likes to go around saying that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, that Iran can never have nuclear weapons capability. But the only one who was willing to do something about it was the president. And when he did something about it, he found allies who made it difficult for us to use our bases. And then, again, if you talk about the NATO alliance, one of the reasons I've always strongly supported our presence in NATO is because it guarantees us base usage rights that allow us to project power and protect our interests. But if those countries don't allow you to use those bases, then that calls the whole alliance into question. As for the president, he believes that Iran is a greater threat to Europe than to the United States. When he took action, he didn't ask those countries for military support. We didn't need their help. He asked if we could use the bases, but some denied or made it difficult, which bothers him and frankly casts a shadow over. I hope NATO will be adjusted. I need to go and continue.
About Iraq, I'm curious about how concerned you are about Iran consolidating control over its allied militias there. And even with those talks underway, what kind of future threat does that pose to your neighbors?
Well, again, that's an example of Iranian interference in the sovereign affairs of another country, in this case, Iraq. They have a new prime minister forming a government. We've received positive signs from him, and he'll soon visit Washington to meet the president. And our hope is that we will continue to defend the sovereignty of the people of Iraq and oppose Iranian interference. That will be discussed. We've already contacted the new prime minister, and he's spoken with the president by phone. We are monitoring it. So far, there have been good signs and some good actions he has taken in forming his government, but obviously there are still some challenges, but it's something we will be watching very closely. All right, last question, everyone. We need to get ready to go.
Just one more about the GCC states. Compensation for the damages. How could this be done? Could this come from the unfrozen funds?
I won't speculate now on how this will be resolved. I just pointed out that this came up in today's meeting. It's in their interest, and we'll have to address this point at some point. But we haven't really worked out any details of this yet, right?
And what about Russia before?
About whom?
Russia is accusing the United States of not complying with, quote, agreements or understandings that we had in Alaska. Go ahead, please.
There was no agreement in Alaska. There was a proposal in Alaska, but there was no agreement in Alaska. If there had been an agreement, the war would already be over. The President and ZUA remain ready to help promote a lasting end to the conflict in Ukraine. There are 20,000 soldiers killed per month, most of them Russians. It has been debilitating for Europe and especially for Ukraine. For Ukraine and increasingly for Russia. So if we are prepared to move forward and play a constructive role, if there is one for us, in bringing the parties together and ending this war, the President has been trying to do that for a year and a half. But there was no agreement in Alaska. There was a proposal made in Alaska, but there was never an agreement. If there had been one made by the United States, because it's the same as what you saw published,